Across the Park podcast is proud to be sponsored by Globe Gas and Heating. For the best kitchen and bathroom renovations, boiler servicing and repair, and central and underfloor heating in the Northwest, head over to globecentralheating.com and quote Across the Park for a free quote. Well, hello and welcome back to Across the Park podcast. It has been a long time since I've seen you guys. I think the last show I was on was around April. So Judgy is in one of his many holiday homes. So Abtag back in. We were, like anyone long-time viewers and listeners of the channel know, that we usually have June off and we come back in July. But something's happened, a rarity. We've made a signing early. Can't believe it. So I'm delighted to have my friend Justin from Up the Villa podcast joining me to talk about Everton's new signing from Aston Villa. I'm going to try and say his name here, Justin. Tim Iroegbunam, I believe, is the right pronunciation, but might just stick to Tim for now.
Yes, as is known by most Villa fans, Tim.
Fair. Well, first of all, Justin, thanks for coming back on. How have you been?
Very good, thanks. Yeah, a bit like you. Yeah, we've had a roller coaster ride and an amazing season, so we're all absolutely
unbelievable. Yeah,
for the new season. Yeah. Champions League on the way. Yeah, I'm absolutely red hot here. My glasses are staying up. It's that hot.
It's a lovely day here as well. I think that 26 degrees today, and people with skin like me.
No, in England.
Absolutely not. But yeah, just to stick on that a little bit from the outside, and I don't mean it to sound disrespectful, but I thought Villa would just tail off. I did think someone would leap you, in the final two games, but you stayed strong. So you're looking forward to what's to come this season?
Well, we did actually tail off, our last couple of months, our form stopped mainly down to the amount of injuries we sustained. We had 3 ACLs last season, which was horrific to big players. And I think by the time we got through to sort of the semi-final of the Conference League, we were literally, I think we had one first team substitute on the bench of 9 or 10 players. So we're on our knees at the end. So, we got over the line in the end. So, yeah, can't wait for next season. It's going to be incredible.
Before we get into it, this is the first show that we've done since our big mate, Super Kevin Campbell, sadly passed away. We are going to do, as part of our summer schedule, we'll be doing a tribute to Super Kev with someone that he knows in a location. But Justin, he seemed, Kevin Campbell, he just seemed, I know he's not no connection to Villa, but he seems universally like to see the tribute on Sky Sports News. And it's a sad loss of football, isn't it, Kevin Campbell?
Yeah, one of the things I was going to say actually right at the start was I saw your guys' heartfelt tributes to Kevin. We obviously, from a fan base that sits away from somebody from a team that he never played for us. Obviously, it was a bit of a shock. The age he was. I don't know the backstory to how what happened, but yeah, I mean, a player that I remember very fondly as an older fan. Coming through at Arsenal and that team he played in there. And if I'm honest, I didn't realise how much affinity the Everton fans had with him. I knew he had a good spell with you, but I think seeing the outpouring of emotion and love for the man, and I've seen loads of videos, mainly from you guys and other Everton fans, about how much, when he appeared at the stadium and came for things, he was mobbed, wasn't he? So, and like you guys, we do a sort of Villa podcast along the same lines as you, and we were lucky enough to talk to a lot of ex-pros, and we have one or two that pop up from time to time. So I can't imagine, how difficult it's been for people that knew him as well as a man. He seemed an amazing guy. So, I mean, thoughts obviously to his family and his close friends and to all Evertonians, really. It's a big loss to football.
No, it absolutely is. We're planning on doing a bit more of a longer show in July. We're going to get into the Winslow pub with the manager there, Dave, who knew Kevin. We're going to do a show there. Also coming up in July, we've got more shows. We've got a show around Goodison Park coming up with some guests. We've got some in-demand radio DJs. My friend Jack Elliott is coming on. And we've got lots to do in the summer, but we're here to talk about our new signing. So I seen a video over on another channel, just Toffee TV, and they had the Queen's Park Rangers fan on, because I know he was on loan at Queen's Park Rangers, and they give a little bit of a description. But I think it's right to get you on as former parent club, because you probably maybe watched him or heard about his development, as you do with young players. You always hear that this guy is coming through, and I know he featured a little bit last season for you, not first choice, but he played a handful of times and he came on. But first question really is: are you sad to see him go? Is it someone that you would have maybe like to keep around the squad longer?
It's a real strange one. I mean, I don't know. We'll probably get into the whys and wherefores why these deals seem to be suddenly happening. We're involved in these multiple youth team swap deals with yourselves, with Chelsea, with there seem to be quite a few raging on, and obviously PSR has got a lot to answer for that.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough actually on the podcast to be invited onto the Ripple Effect, James Alcott's podcast down in London on the Spotify, and it's on my. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll see the link to that. And we were basically discussing all the players of it and what do we do with them, keep, sell, loan, and because he is a big QPR fan, when Tim Iroegbunam's name came up, I actually threw it back to him. I said, "What do you think about Tim Iroegbunam?" Because he did spend a decent chunk there at QPR. I think he
Yeah,
played 32 times for them
that's right. Yeah.
season. So it was interesting to hear his take on them because he probably saw him more over a course of a season playing regularly in the first team than probably any Villa fan has.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, to take you back really to his time at Villa and his history at Villa, we sort of took him from West Brom's academy. Their academy director was poached by Villa. He came across to Villa. They were struggling a little bit, I think, and they were losing quite a few of these academy prospects. And I go down and watch the under-21s quite a lot at Bodymore Heath, and I think he stood out massively at West Brom. He was a player that earmarked for a big future down there,
Yeah.
and we managed to get him across to Villa. And I think he made a pretty big impact when he first arrived in the youth team, the 21s, and he was quickly became a real key part of that team. And I think everybody that saw him play at that level thought, yeah, this lad's got a chance. Like we all do, we all want these young players to come
Of
through and
course.
be next. I mean, we've been lucky enough to have Jack Grealish to Jacob Ramsey over the last few years that have
Yeah.
managed to break through that sort of level into a real proper bona fide first team player. And I think all fans of all clubs, whatever level you're at, you can't beat a homegrown player,
Of
can you,
course. Yeah.
coming through? So yeah, he came through, he broke through the ranks and became a proper first team player, really, albeit on the fringes of the team. And then last season, he was sort of in and around, he went on loan, came back, and he was retained within the squad. So we all thought, okay, he's got a real chance now at being. I mean, we let Leander Dendoncker go on loan last summer, which a lot of Villa fans sort of read into the fact that okay, we think that the manager thinks that Tim Iroegbunam is going to now sort of step up one
Mm.
notch and become the backup for our sixes. You know, we played two sixes, Kamara and Louise.
Yeah.
And the natural replacement would be a defensive slash midfielder who can do a bit more. I mean, Iroegbunam's skill set is probably a little bit more than just a sitting holding midfielder. I think he can do a lot more than that. But over the course of the season, he never really got many minutes at Villa. I was just sort of trying to look at his stats, and I mean,
Was he just coming into when people were suspended or unfit? Was he just sort of, was that his main
well,
game time?
I
I
think
mean, by asking that, I mean, were the games that he was chosen ahead of like a Douglas Luiz or?
I mean he played a couple of games in early rounds of cup competitions.
Yeah.
And I think one of the key factors to this move, I think, being more accepted by Villa fans than probably would have been, is the fact towards the end of the season we had horrific injuries, absolutely terrible injuries. And one of the areas that was most affected was centre midfield. You know, not only did we have Boubacar Kamara doing his ACL and miss the rest of the season, but we had John McGinn suspended for 3 games. We had Douglas Luiz suspended for 3 games with red cards. We had Yuri Tielemans out for a while with an injury. And we didn't, the depth in that area was very small. You know, there wasn't that
Mm.
many players really ready to step in. So I think the fact that Iroegbunam never really got a run in the team probably leads you to think that Unai Emery probably didn't think he was either quite ready or quite good enough. You know, there's
Okay.
plenty of times when we did match previews and we looked at the squad we had available, and a lot of the times, me, myself, Luke, and Ryan were saying, "Okay, this is Iroegbunam. He's got to play now because we've got so many people out injured that it's about time he stepped in and we saw what he could do." And
Mhm.
I think he started 1 game, but that doesn't take away what we think of him as a player. I think he's got a chance of being a really good player. But
I mean, I'm not
what?
I'm not stupid. I'm not stupid enough to say that he's not stepping down. So he's moving away from a team who've qualified for the Champions League and
Yeah,
an ambitious club and a team with a really good manager who probably want to build on that. This is not going to be a one season thing for Villa. Want to get better players, so he's downgrading to come to us, and I've got no problem saying that. Do you think he's good enough to be a regular starter for a team which, again, for me, a mid-table finish would be a really good season for Everton? So that lower echelon of the Premier League, do you think he's suitable to be a consistent starter in a team for like Everton?
I think if you put your arm around the lad and you give him, which will happen anyway naturally because he's signed for a club, so you think the manager likes him and
Yeah.
sees enough in him, to be a real important player. And I think it's a good move for Tim. I think in the massive scheme of things, it's a really good move for Villa financial wise.
Mm.
It's a really good move for Tim Iroegbunam. And I think potentially it could be a really good deal for Everton. Now, we can, like we do, we can think and look and think, okay, is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? And based on what I've seen him, I think he deserves that chance to go and play regular football. Now, whether
Mm.
he gets a really good run in the team, I don't know. That's obviously going to depend on lots of factors. On will he get early minutes in the season and will he do well enough in those early games to convince the manager, okay, he deserves a run in the side? Or will it be a matter of him trying to, impress via cameos at the end of games or,
Mm.
early rounds of cup competitions? I don't really know, but he's a good footballer. I'll stand by that. He's a good footballer, and I think he's got a chance of being a solid Premier League midfielder. Is he good enough to be mixing it at the top of the division? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think Everton's a really good move for him. I think I mean, I like Everton. They're one of my
Mm.
favourite clubs in the Premier League. They're very similar to Villa, and
Of course, yeah.
and I think it's a good move for him. I do.
It reminds me a little bit of the signing we made of James Garner, who was his parent club was Manchester United, and he wasn't
Yeah,
quite good enough to get into that team, and he went on loan to Nottingham Forest in the Championship, and he stood out. And then we took a gamble on him, and that seems to have worked. I think any Evertonian would be honest and say if we sold James Garner, we would get profit on what we paid for him. And
yeah,
that's probably similar to what the model that we need to make now, especially as you've alluded to there with the FFP and the PSR. We have
it's
to be clever,
ridiculous.
and
Yeah.
teams like my team who are at the wrong end of the table. There's a spoonful of realism that we have to say that maybe we have to be a trading club for the next few years, and we have to get that right. And then if we slowly take baby steps forward, we can get back to where we want to go.
You say that, Ian, and like you've said, we've broke the top four now.
Yeah.
We've got massively, owners that are properly pushing it now.
Mm.
Anybody with the outside of Villa probably doesn't realise that Wes Edens and Nassif Sawiris, they properly mean business at Villa.
Mm.
They're not happy with fourth. They want to put us in a position where we're going to be a title contender. And that might, a lot of fans outside Villa might laugh at that. But I've never seen Villa in a position that we are now. Yet we are also having to be a trading club
Yeah.
because of profit and sustainability.
I
We've
see.
lost, one of our academy who's gone to Chelsea, Amari Kellerman. I've been raving about this kid now since we had him from Derby at 15. He was fast tracked into the first team at 17, and he got more minutes, I think, last season than Iroegbunam at the end of the season. And we've had to sell him for £19 million to Chelsea to get through this PSR.
It's
So
ridiculous.
it's absolutely obscene that what clubs are having to do now in this early part of the window to the June 30th cutoff to circumnavigate what is looking more and more like an outdated financial regulations. I mean, our owners went to the Premier League and asked for to up the 105 million 3 year
I've seen it. Yeah.
amount losses. I mean, they wasn't asking for it to go to 500 million. They was
Was it
asking
one
to add
one
an
three
extra
five?
30
Was it?
million,
Yeah.
135,
Yeah.
to be in line with inflation. From when
Yeah.
that was set all those years ago, 105, common sense would tell you everything's gone up in those that amount of time. So
Yeah.
why should clubs still have to adhere to that 105 when? Why? I mean, and we as I say, we've just sold a 18-year-old that's not really played for first team for 19 million. Yet you're
Mm.
still having to be within 105 million pounds. That's two players now in the Premier League, isn't it? Not even top
Yeah.
players.
And
It's
it's
blows
not
my
just,
mind.
and it's not just that. Now, I agree with what you're saying there, because you having to sell your prospects or youth players because there's 100% profit on the books. You've got to get
Exactly.
round it.
Yeah, profit on
But
the books. Yeah.
the the thing for me is you're also in danger of losing your best players to the teams you've just leaped. So you look at Newcastle last year; they leaped Liverpool. So
Yeah.
they finished in the Champions League places, and Liverpool didn't. Now, what happened that summer is we know where Newcastle's money come from. If they were allowed to, they would have really, really gone for it and
Yeah.
said, we're going nowhere. They were hampered, whilst Liverpool bid 120 million for Moise Caicedo. And you're thinking, they've just leaped Liverpool. Yet the
Yeah.
rules are now allowing Liverpool to just go. And it's the same with you guys as well. You've leaped certain clubs now who will probably
Yeah.
outspend you, and it's not
Yeah.
right.
Well, I think what it's highlighted for me is, I thought we were a few years away from being where we are now, but our
Mm,
accelerated growth is because of really good investment by our owners, really shrewd off-field appointments, mostly down to an absolutely ridiculously appointed manager who is just
yeah.
obscene, probably one of the best managers I've ever seen at Villa. So what's happened now is, like you're saying, and I agree with you. We've jumped so many teams, but that closed shop, top 4/6 of the big six, they made sure that once they broke away and those rules suited them at the time, they basically said, right, let's bring in these rules that then mean that it's almost impossible for any other club now to catch us, because you have got to grow your off field to be to such an extent that you can then start buying players because you can only spend what you bring in. And they'd
Mm,
already got to that point. They'd already
of
spent
course.
hundreds of millions of pounds accumulating a world class squad, and then they shut the back door.
Yeah.
Okay, we're there now. We don't want anyone else to break into this. We like Champions League every year. We like the money coming in every year. We like the best players, and I really like what Villa are doing. I really do. I like the fact we're trying to batter this door down now. Because if we don't, I don't think anybody else really. Newcastle, maybe.
I
I
think I
just
think
don't know.
see, with Newcastle, it is when they gate crashed the top four, if you will. They were restricted so much because of the
Yeah,
wealth that they've got. They would, if they could have, they'd have went and got an Mbappe or something
yeah,
if they
yeah,
could have.
yeah, yeah,
I think Villa now are in a position where you've still got to be quite clever with your signings,
yeah.
which you have been as well. And I think fortunate's not the right word, but you're very fortunate to have Unai Emery. And I think if you keep hold of him, but the danger again with this FFP model is how long does a manager of Unai Emery's standing say, okay, there's a ceiling in this league I'm in, with this club I'm in. I might love it, but there's a ceiling.
Well,
And if the Liverpool job comes available, then because of the money they can spend, for instance, it's
right. I'll give you my take on that. And this was thrown at us. Luke went on the Gary Neville's podcast.
yeah,
Went down
the
there, and
overlap.
the overlap. Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's a few. I think a few of these musings. I think Andy Goldstein on Talksport said
Mm,
exactly the same. Well, once a big club comes in for him, he'll go.
mm,
From our perspective, Unai Emery will not be walking away from Aston Villa any time over the next few years. He signed a contract extension halfway through last season, and he said straight away, and the owners said straight away, there's another one waiting for him at the end of the season. That has now been signed as well, and
mm.
that's given him a 5-year, I think, deal at Villa. We have invested in the bigger aspect of Aston Villa Football Club now, and the owners is we've got this group called the V Sports Group, and we now own multiple clubs all over the world in all continents. And we will continue adding to this. One of the main and probably the most important addition was Unai Emery's own team, who plays in the lower league in Spain, who he
All right,
has
okay.
ownership of as well. And Villa went and bought that club. So they are developing his club in his hometown. So the connection with the manager to Villa and the owners and the bigger picture is something I've never seen.
Yeah.
Possibly at another club, I don't know. I don't know enough about other clubs, but the depth they've gone to secure not only him as the manager, and he's also changed his role. He was first team coach. He signed the new deal this summer. He was now installed as manager, so he
Okay.
overlooked the management of everything, and he was allowed carte blanche to bring in every single player he wanted, like off field player personnel as well. So for me, he doesn't walk away from Villa for any club at the moment, and that's a big thing to say, and something I can't
No,
believe I'm
no.
saying, but that's my honest feeling.
I didn't know that, to be fair. That's interesting that you brought that up. It seems like Villa and the hierarchy are doing everything they can to ensure that Unai
Because they
does stay
understand
there.
what you're saying, look, Ian,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because what you're saying is, unless the structure is there and it's embedded in the manager's mind, then yes, the financial restrictions that we're talking about at some point could become so ridiculous, and the fact we can't compete, that he might think, okay, well, I just as much as I love it here, I just can't get where I want to
Hmm.
get to. So I
Hmm.
think they've tried to give him everything he can to prove to him, okay, we can get there. It might take us 2 or 3 years now. I think they've set themselves a 3. It was a 5-year target for Champions League when they came in. They've hit that amazingly, and now they've set a 3-year target now to become a constant top 4 club and ready to which means more off-field growth than
Hmm.
on-field growth, which is why we've seen the Adidas deal now. They cut Castori out halfway through last season. They signed a massive deal with Adidas. We've signed a massive deal with sponsorship and everything. So it's going that way. Corporate's going massive as well. So we'll see.
I think it's good for the average football fan, and I actually think supporters of the big four or the big six, big seven, whatever you want to call them, I
Yeah,
actually think like-minded supporters would agree that we need to change it. It's it's great to be a supporter of Manchester City and win everything. It's great to be a supporter of Arsenal
yeah,
and be flying. Manchester United have just won a cup, so their fans are enjoying things. But when Villa done it, I mean, when Newcastle done it, I hate Newcastle, so I didn't appreciate it. But I've got a lot of respect and I like
yeah,
Aston Villa. So when you guys done it,
yeah.
and obviously we're friends as well, I was happy for you, and I really, really hope that you don't get leaped again this season. I really hope that you do it again, and I really hope that. I think for me and for my football club, it gives me hope to see another club doing it and saying to the administrators of the league or whoever it is who they always say the club's voted for these rules, it's club enforced, whatever. These rules are in place and they do not allow sport and competition in my eyes. And if
No.
you can break that and you can regularly do it, it's good for me. It's good for the football fan.
Oh, I agree, and I think that's what we're trying to do. Now, it's gonna don't get me wrong, doing it once was amazing. Doing it again is going to be really, really hard, especially because we are having to box extremely clever in the transfer market. I mean, we've just basically had to sell Douglas Luiz to Juventus, although we've brought 2
Seeing that,
players
yeah,
in from there who I'm quite excited about. But we basically lost one of our linchpins from last season, one of our
yeah,
most
good
important
player.
players. And we knew pretty early on this was going to happen. There was lots of rumours coming out of Villa that this PSR and the profit rules might mean that one of our big boys is going to go. So we've just got to trust that we know what we're doing, and we do. I think the off-field stuff is very well looked after on the footballing side. And hope, but what I don't want to happen is I don't want to turn into a soulless Manchester City.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want that. I know you've got to accept that if you do get to that level, you're going to have a certain amount of fans coming from, souvenir fan, you know what I mean, coming from abroad and filling the stadium, taking
Mhm.
pictures and selfies and everything, which is fine because if a stadium becomes big enough, then we can heart,
You
but
you can
we've got to
accommodate that,
retain the
can't you? Yeah,
soul. We've
yeah.
got to retain the soul and the heartbeat of the club, which is the majority of the fans.
And that's what we say in this city. If you compare the two teams in this city, everything you've just said there is across the park. However,
Yeah,
my football club, I think when David Moyes came in 2002, he called it the People's Football Club in the city. It's
yeah,
the working man's team, and I think Villa are very, very similar to that. You don't see the tourist with the half and half scarves on when I'm
yeah.
watching Super Sunday at Villa Park. You do see that other ground. I think you're spot on. It's really important that you
It's
have to
hard though,
embrace.
isn't it?
We're the same because when that new stadium gets built and it adds 12,000 extra seats, we have to fill that. And
Yeah,
I think we have to then accept as a fan base that, okay, we'll put them in the corner, but they've
yeah,
got to
yeah.
come. And you don't
They
want
have.
to lose that. Where you're standing in the Holt End when there's a corner, or I'm standing in
Yeah.
the Gladys Street when there's a corner, and you're around your mates and you're working class people, you don't want to see someone who's not as connected as you. But it's a fine line, isn't it?
But the modern game and the modern way of being in that upper echelons now of the Premier League means that this is a necessity.
Of course.
I don't want it. I don't like the money in football. I think it's obscene. I don't like the
Mm.
fact we're having to sell our souls to corporate, that we're having to do all these deals. Our season tickets are going up in price. Everything, the shirts are ridiculous costs. tickets are okay. Especially away ones are capped. But all these things are now have to, as a modern football fan, you have to just accept it. And I know a lot of my friends that I talk to, they don't want to accept it. They don't want to pay more money.
No.
They feel like they're being pushed out of their club. And there's lots of people that are being pushed out of their clubs because they simply can't afford the increased amount of money it's costing to go to to games and to follow your team. I want to go to a couple of Champions League away games this year because I don't know whether this is ever going to happen again. Hopefully it does, but if it doesn't, I want to make sure I get in on it this season. So it's a real balancing act of heart and head. And from my head point of view, I understand it. I get it. I know the financials of the club. I know where we've got to get to. We've got to add 50 million at least every single year for the next few years to get anywhere near any of the top four clubs their income. But to do that, you've got to put everything up in price, and that kills the hardcore of your fan base. So where do you draw the line? This is why I think our owners hopefully are trying to push for rule changes at the top. Now, whether this would ever happen, but if they suddenly said you can spend whatever you want, if you've got an owner who wants to spend 500 million, hopefully they would say, okay, because it's our money, we want to do it, then they won't have to. The excuse goes out the window that we've got to put prices up to keep up with the rules. So they might be able to say, let's keep the prices low, but if we want to buy a £400 million footballer and give him £1 million a week, that's on us. We're not putting the tickets up to you to pay for it. I don't know. Maybe I'm pie in the sky. I don't know.
It's a minefield, isn't it? It's a balanced act of getting it all right. But look, we spoke about Tim. There's a ceiling that you think he may get to, and it's a good move. Deep line midfielder. He describes himself on the official Everton website as a ball winner. And I think probably if that's correct, a deep lying ball winner, I think it's a natural replacement for another ex-Villa player, Idrissa Gana Guy, who's 36 this season. So I don't think it's it happens by accident that he's gonna stay with Ghana Guy for a year and maybe pick up some good habits from him. We've talked PSR. I know you've probably brought a bunch of Villa fans over with you because you're a very, very big channel. So let's talk Lewis Dobbin. I was really, really shocked by it because it was a player who was never unhappy, seemingly getting more minutes as he got older. The manager waxed lyrical about him. And I think we both know what's going on with what the clubs are doing now with the PSR and getting things round. But was it a little bit of a strange one for you? Did you even know much about Lewis?
Nothing.
No.
It totally came out of the blue, to be honest. Over the last few weeks, we've seen these deals starting to emerge. The Louise one was the first one for us where it suddenly started. I mean, when we were younger, swap deals were quite common, really, with football teams. You'd have player plus money. That seemed to go out of the game. But then all of a sudden, Louise suddenly was off to Juventus and there was two players coming the other direction. I thought, that's a bit strange. I haven't seen that for a while. And then one of our young strikers, Duran, was suddenly linked to Chelsea, and that was a £40-45 million deal. And then it was suddenly thrown into the mix. We could be getting one or two, or they could be getting one or two from us. And I was thinking, that's strange. And then all of a sudden, Iroegbunam disappears off, and then it's Lewis Dobbins coming the other way. And then we sell another player to Chelsea out the youth team. So these all deals are suddenly coming out of nowhere. And I think, like you said, alluded to, we know why they're happening. But if I'm honest, I didn't know a lot about Lewis Dobbin. I think I knew his name, and I know that he played at Villa Park last year, and he absolutely ripped Matty Cash to bits down the left-hand side, right side. So I've done a little bit of research on him. He seems to be a real talented attacker, left-hand side player. Maybe could play in the middle as well.
He's direct.
But again,
he's very direct.
People on, and
He
what's your opinion on him then?
Well, he was one of those players, as I alluded to before, with you and Tim. He's one of those players that we heard about. So Everton have got this player who's 16, and he's scoring great goals at that level. He's played for the under-21s, and he's standing out. And the season where lockdown lifted and fans came back in the ground was 21-22. And he was part of the squad straight away. I think he featured in pre-season. I think he got his debut, if I'm right, at home to Norwich into September. And one of the first things he did was he just ran at the right back. And then I think he won a throw in a dangerous area, and the crowd were quite excited by it. He was love it. He was raw. And what happened is he had a very, very good loan move to Derby County.
Yes.
He went to Derby County, and I don't know what game or when it was, but there's a video there where he scores an
Is it the
absolute
volley?
screamer, the volley. And
Yeah.
again, this comes back to us, and we're like, right, this is a really great loan move. Obviously, he's doing well. He
Yeah.
comes back. He features in pre-season. Sean Dyche likes him. I
Yeah.
think three games in last season, I think we lost our first two, and he threw Dobbin in for the third game of the season, and it was a home to, right, it wasn't Fulham, a home to Wolverhampton Wanderers it was, and all he done was run and run and run at them, and it was a little bit like when he got the ball, you'd go, oh, this guy's going to do
Everybody
something.
got up. Everybody got up. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Like our usual left winger is Dwight McNeil, like not blessed with pace. And what Dwight McNeil's game is usually it's a 1-2, and he'll run behind without the ball, and he'll look
Get a
for
yard, whip
movement.
it in. Yeah.
Dobbin doesn't want that. Dobbin's like, you stay where you are, left back. You don't need to overlap me because I'm going to run at you.
I'm doing it
Now,
myself. Yeah.
whether he could be a starter for you guys, I don't know. But what I will say is the ceiling is high with him, and
Really.
he scored past Chelsea last season. He came on and scored past Chelsea. Really good goal, and I remember him playing well that game as well. He came on at Villa Park when we got beat, and like you said there, he was man of the match because he came on at half time or on 60 minutes, and he ended up being our man of the match just because of how direct he was.
Yeah.
And what he will do for you is he'll get you up the pitch. Now, whether
Yeah.
that's by just
Ball
winning the
carrying.
throw, exactly.
Yeah.
So if he tries to take someone on, if he can't get past him, he'll win you the foul or a throw in because he's that direct and he's very, very quick. What you said there, you believe he can play centrally. I don't think he's got that. I think he's an out and out
No.
winger.
So left side, right side, both. Do you think
Left.
he can play both?
He can probably play both, but I think he's
Yeah.
left-footed. So we've seen him on the left-hand side. Um, he did. I remember when we had. I hate saying this guy's name. When Benitez was our manager, and Benitez did play him in a central role. I think he came on against Chelsea away when we had a lot of injuries, and he's not made for it. He's not physically. Well, he wasn't
No.
then. He's not physically made to play as a 9, and I don't think he's got what it takes to be a 10. I just think you've got a winger with a really high ceiling, and I'm disappointed to lose him. I understand why we're
Yeah.
doing it, because Sean Dyche will play Dwight McNeil. Sean Dyche has just re-signed Jack Harrison for another year-long loan, and there's
Yeah.
Sean Dyche's wingers. So I wouldn't say, without him having a brilliant pre-season, I wouldn't say that he's going to be starting for you in August, September,
No.
but I could certainly see him featuring. Certainly.
See, we carry at the moment winger wise. We've got Leon Bailey, who had a phenomenal season for us.
Yeah.
Musa Diaby, who was brilliant at the start, tailed off a little bit, then came back, but his numbers were very good last season. We signed Morgan Rogers in January, who turned out to be a fantastic sign for £8 million. That's an absolute bargain for me because his ceiling is ridiculously high. He can play left, right, centrally. And we've also missing most of the season last year was Jacob Ramsey, who plays off the left for us as well. So we've got 4 players there who are really, really good. But I can definitely see him fitting into, say, where, from what you're saying, he seems to be sort of a Leon Bailey type player who Leon Bailey's all left foot, but he plays off our right because Emery loves him cutting in. And unleashing that left foot. So it seems that kind of profile would fit that position for us. So I think a player that would definitely, it'd be interesting to see what he does in pre-season. We're going to America for pre-season, so he'll probably be a part of that. I'm sure he will be a part of that. And then it'll be up to him to impress. And I don't, because we've got to fill these quotas for Europe as well, so many homegrown, so many English born and all this, I think he will be retained within the squad. And then a bit like Iroegbunam, it'd be, just get minutes off the bench and hopefully impress and put himself in a position where he can start some games next season. But if I'm honest, looking at both players, I think we've got the slightly best end of the deal on this one.
Mm.
But that's not to say I don't think Tim Iroegbunam can't do well for Everton. That's just because I think Dobbin's had more minutes. I think he's further advanced in his career currently than Iroegbunam. But I think the roles they play obviously are very different. So it's, playing in that role, centre midfield in the Premier League is a lot to ask. Player to dictate play and tempo and everything like that, and break play up and stuff. So I think it'll be interesting to see how both develop next season. And I'm no doubt we'll speak a couple of times during the season when we play each other. So it'll be interesting to pick these up as we go through the season and have each other's opinions on the players that we've
Yeah.
let go.
Yeah, no, definitely look forward to that. What I will say before we just close out on Lewis is, I'm not sure whether you've seen this, but he put a really, really mature goodbye to the Evertonians. Now, it was thank you to all the coaches who worked on me, over the years. I love you guys. Thanks to the medical team who looked after me when I had injuries. I love you guys. The Evertonians, I wish you nothing but the best. But I'm excited for a move. And what I will, and I always find it hard. I don't want to criticise young lads because that's what these players are, and we've all been young lads. But just for this comparison, I'll just bring in Anthony Gordon. Now, when Anthony Gordon left Everton as a young lad, and again, may not have received the right advice, there wasn't a goodbye. He was then on the overlap a few months later saying that, he thought that he couldn't do what he wanted to do whilst he was at Everton and he just had to get out. And Lewis Dobbin might be thinking the same things, but the way he's handled himself in this exit, you're getting a really good lad. And even when he played for us, he was always somebody who would acknowledge the supporters at the end, and you'd see him give the shirt away or whatever, and he'd be great with the mascot of things. And I think it's important to add that I don't know Lewis personally, but what I know as an Evertonian is you're getting a really good lad.
I'm just hoping that I think Morgan Rogers signed. Obviously, I was just saying that in January, and then there was a bit of a joke around the training ground. Apparently, that Unai Emery kept saying, "You're a championship player," joking to him, and then he basically he's improved so much. I mean, Emery has improved easily every single player that's been at Villa. I mean, he took over from Gerrard, who had us in 17th, and with essentially exactly the same squad, took us to 7th and then to 4th. Yeah. So that just shows you what a brilliant manager he is. So for someone like Lewis, who's had a real grounding in the Premier League already, I think that pull of coming to a club that's a Champions League club now, and what that could potentially mean to him next season, sitting on the bench at the Bernabeu or Allianz Arena, all these amazing places that we all just dream of going to. But now all of a sudden he's signed for this club. So you would think the desire in a young kid like him, and if he is as grounded and as sort of calm as he seems to be with those kind of mature things to do, then off the field and it's obviously going to hopefully all feed into what will be a successful season for the young kid, and he can make an impact.
I hope he does. We put a tweet out ourselves to Lewis and just wished him nothing but success. And stranger things has happened that Lewis might be watching this, and again, we wish him nothing but success. And I do think that the players that we've sort of exchanged, it seems just from speaking to you that they might fit a little bit better now where they've gone. We're a non-possession based side. We're a non-possession based side. If you look at our wins last season, some of them happens with like 28% of the ball, and we rely on winning that ball and the transition being quick. Whereas you guys are a lot more attacking. Lewis is going to have a lot more opportunities to go and score goals and get up the pitch. And maybe, I'm not saying that Unai Emery doesn't like, defensive actions, but I think Sean Dyche will ask a lot of his wingers in relation to off the ball. Whereas maybe Lewis get a bit more freedom with you, where Unai will say, when you get the ball, show me the magic. You go and win us a corner and things like that. So, and again, with Tim coming in, I don't think it's an accident that he's going to play with a Disagana guy for a year and pick up those defensive habits of like how important the players when you haven't got the ball, how the teams at this end of the division, how do we win games without the ball? Well, here's how we do it, and you learn a whole new thing. So I'm quite excited by the signing of Tim, and I'm sad to see Lewis go, and I think vice versa with yourself.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just glad you're calling him Tim, because it took us ages to get ourselves round Iroegbunam, but I've just got used to saying Iroegbunam, and I've almost got used to spelling his name right on Twitter every time I normally have to go onto Google and just copy and paste his name, so I don't get his name wrong. But I wish him all the best. He's tried his hardest at Villa. He's always seems to have been a really nice lad around the place. A lot of people talk very highly of him, and I think it's a good move for you and a good move for him, and I wish him nothing but the best. Unless he's playing against us, obviously. I know.
The most Everton thing ever is Dobbin's going to kill us next season at Villa Park. That's the most Everton thing ever. He's going to destroy us. Look, it's been great to get you back on. And I've said there that some Villa fans will probably be watching. If they've just discovered you through the hashtags, what have you got coming up on the summer over on Up the Villa podcast?
Yeah, well, we're just doing a bit, just bits on when breaking news happens, I suppose, transfers and things, and then we're trying to talk through the Euros. We won't talk about that because it's we could talk for hours on that. But we're not a fan of Gareth. We'll put it like that. So basically, then we're just on the build up then to the new season. That's when the real stuff will come back in. Yeah, we just jump in and out like you do really at the moment. But can't wait for the new season. It'll be a huge one for us next year once again.
Any Villa fans who are watching, we've put the link in a description. Just click below, click it, and you'll also see Justin's Twitter handle or X handle, wherever they want to call it. It's always Twitter to me. It'll always be Twitter. And any Evertonians who have joined us on a Cluster Park podcast, thank you. If you can click the like button, if you can subscribe, and if you put this video into all your Everton WhatsApp groups, we've got a busy summer coming up. Like I said at the start, we're down at Goodison Park with special guests, ex-players, supporters, as we go into a really emotional time as an Evertonian, losing Goodison Park. We're going to be there. There's someone doing a big show, which we hope you
the last
enjoy.
season now, Ian?
This is it. This is it now, yeah.
I actually went up to Liverpool a few weeks ago for a night away with the missus, and I went and we was leaving on the Sunday, and the wife said, "Come on, we'll go now." I said, "Yeah, we've just got to do a quick detour." She says, "You what?" I said, "Just bear with me a minute." We drove. She said, "We're going north." I said, "I know we should be going south. Just give me a few." So we drove up. I parked in a side road, and I went and had a good look at it. It looks a really nice, pretty beautiful position on the docks, isn't it?
Huge, and it's a head and heart scenario because that new stadium has been forecast to bring 30 million plus extra in a year for Everton Football Club, and that's a game changer for Everton Football Club.
I was told that the transport links aren't the best up there. Is that true?
No, that's true. And the roads and the buildings around it are listed, so there's not a lot you can really do. You really need to,
Are they going to improve like trams and things in?
I think what they're trying to do is the waterfront, where the Liverbirds are at the minute. You can't walk from there to Bramley Moor without going on the roads. I think they're trying to make a walkway there.
Okay.
And I think a lot of it's on Everton.
Like Fulham.
Exactly. And I think what will happen then is if you have that access, someone will put a bar there, someone will put a restaurant there.
Yeah, it'll
someone
naturally
else
grow, won't it? Yeah.
And all of a sudden the city centre expands. So as we
Podcast
go
studio.
into as we go into that, it's going to be emotional, even Goodison. But like I said, we're going to be there in a few weeks' time doing a special show. We've got the Interman DJs coming back on. We've got a Kevin Campbell tribute. We're going to be getting Matt Jones over to do a Trammy Rover show, like we always check in with Trammy Rover as well. So we're going to be busy, just as Justin's busy over on the Up the Villa podcast. So any Villa fans, head over, link in description. Any Evertonians, like and subscribe this video. Justin, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to speaking to you again when we play you. But thanks for coming back on the podcast. I really appreciate it, mate.
Anytime, Ian. Up the Villa.
Up the Soffies.